In the heart of a small coastal town called West Haven, known for its ancient maritime traditions and crumbling docks, stood an old house. This house, once a grand seaside home, now groaned under the weight of time and neglect. It belonged to the Clark family, a family renowned for their deep ties to the sea. They were sailors, adventurers, and storytellers. Each generation had passed down tales of great voyages, hidden treasures, and distant lands. Inside this creaky old house, the last of the Clarks, Captain William Clark, still lived but not alone. Jake and his sister Emily, both adults now, were spending the summer with their aging grandfather. The summer visits had become something of a tradition. Each year they returned, not just out of love for their grandfather, but for the irresistible pull of the sea and the memories of their childhood spent exploring West Haven. Captain Clark was a retired sailor who had traveled the world, bringing back stories filled with pirate treasure, sea monsters, and cursed islands. Though Jake, at 25, had long since lost his belief in such fantasies, his younger sister Emily, now 22, still carried with her the spark of adventure that those tales had lit in her as a child. It was a stormy afternoon when the discovery was made. The air was thick with moisture as the rain drummed against the roof of the old house. Wind howled down the narrow streets, rattling the windows. Bored and restless, Jake suggested they explore the attic, a place they hadn't ventured into for years. They had both spent countless childhood afternoons rummaging through the attic's dusty trunks and old sea chests, imagining themselves as pirates or explorers. "I bet Grandpa's hidden something up there that we've never found," Emily said as they climbed the narrow staircase leading to the attic. "He's always talking about secrets we haven't discovered." Jake chuckled. "We've searched that attic a million times, Em. If there's anything left, I'll be shocked." But as they pushed open the creaky attic door, the musty smell of old wood and forgotten things filled their lungs. The faint light from the single window cast long shadows over the piles of old furniture, books, and sea memorabilia. It felt like stepping into another world. For over an hour, they sifted through the familiar trunks and boxes. Old compasses, rusted navigational tools, and crumbling maps filled their hands, but nothing new stood out. Until Emily spotted something. "Look at this," she said, pulling aside an old painting to reveal a small, worn chest tucked behind it. The chest was tied shut with frayed ropes, and the wood was splintering from age. Jake knelt beside her. "I don't remember seeing this before." He carefully untied the ropes, his curiosity piqued. Inside, they found a collection of old papers and trinkets. But one item stood out, a rolled-up piece of parchment, worn and yellowed with age. Emily's eyes lit up as she unrolled it. "Jake, it's a map." Jake leaned closer. The map was detailed, showing a coastline that looked eerily familiar. There was a large X marked on what seemed to be an island far off the coast of West Haven. The intricate design and the faded ink gave the map an aura of mystery. Emily grinned. "It's a treasure map, Jake, just like in Grandpa's stories." Jake frowned, shaking his head. "Come on, Emily, we're too old for this. Grandpa probably drew this up himself when he was younger, just for fun." But Emily's excitement didn't falter. "What if it's real? What if this is something Grandpa left for us to find? He always said there were treasures he never got around to chasing." The more Jake stared at the map, the more he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something authentic about it. The details were too precise, too familiar. Could it be that one of Grandpa's stories wasn't just a tale? Later that evening, during dinner, Emily could barely contain her excitement. They had planned to wait until after dinner to bring it up, but she couldn't hold it in any longer. "Grandpa," she blurted out, "we found something in the attic today, a map." Captain Clark's eyes twinkled with mischief as he leaned back in his chair. "Oh, what kind of map, my dear?" Jake pulled the old parchment from his pocket and placed it on the table. The room fell silent as Captain Clark unrolled the map. His weathered hands smoothed the parchment, and a grin spread across his face, though his eyes betrayed a hint of something more: nostalgia, perhaps, or even regret. "Well now, you found something interesting, haven't you?" the old sailor said. "I remember this map. It's older than you think." Jake and Emily exchanged glances. "Is it real?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Captain Clark's expression grew serious. It leads to a place off the coast, an island that most have forgotten. I went there once many years ago. And? Did you find the treasure? Jake asked, half joking, but intrigued nonetheless. The captain shook his head. No, I didn't. And no one ever has, as far as I know. Why not? Emily pressed, leaning forward. The old man lowered his voice, casting a glance at the darkening windows. Because it's guarded. Guarded? Jake's skepticism returned. By what? Pirates. Captain Clark met his grandson's eyes, his voice steady. No one knows for sure. Some say it's the spirits of those who buried the treasure. Others say the island itself protects it. All I know is that something kept me from finding it, and I wasn't about to risk my life for a few pieces of gold. That night, neither Jake nor Emily could stop thinking about the map. The idea of treasure, real treasure, hidden on a mysterious island just off the coast, was impossible to resist. We have to go, Emily said as they lay in their beds, the sound of the waves crashing outside their window. Jake sighed, staring at the ceiling. It's probably just an old sailor's tale. But what if it's not? The next morning, under the guise of just exploring the coast, they packed their bags, loaded up their small sailboat, and set out for the island. The map was tucked safely in Emily's backpack, and with the coordinates memorized, they navigated through the calm morning sea. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting golden light across the water, and for a moment, the world seemed peaceful. Perfect even, but as they sailed farther from shore, the sky began to change. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, and the wind picked up. The gentle waves grew choppy, slapping against the side of their boat. We need to hurry, Jake said, his voice tense as he adjusted the sails. Emily scanned the horizon, looking for any sign of the island. The storm was moving faster than they had anticipated, and the wind was pushing them off course. Just as Jake was about to suggest turning back, Emily shouted, "There! I see it!" Through the mist and rain, the island emerged small, rocky, and surrounded by turbulent waters. It was just as the map had shown, but something about it felt wrong. The trees that covered the island seemed too dense, too dark, as if they were hiding something. Jake anchored the boat, and they quickly rowed to shore, the storm now upon them. The waves crashed behind them as they stepped onto the rocky beach, but once they were on the island, the air seemed unnaturally still. The howling wind and crashing waves faded as they ventured deeper into the forest, following the path marked on the map. The deeper they went, the darker the forest became. The trees twisted together above them, blocking out the light. It felt as if the island were watching them, waiting. Finally, they reached a clearing where an ancient tree stood, its roots tangled around what looked like a half-buried chest. It was exactly as the map had shown. "There it is," Emily whispered, her heart pounding in her chest. Jake knelt beside the chest, but as he reached for it, something in the air shifted. A low rumble echoed through the ground, and the trees seemed to sway even though there was no wind. "Wait," Emily said, pulling Jake back. "What if Grandpa was right? What if it's guarded?" Jake hesitated, then nodded. Together, they cautiously opened the chest. The creaking lid revealed a sight they had only imagined: gold coins, glittering jewels, and ancient artifacts, more than they could have ever dreamed. But before they could celebrate, the ground beneath them began to tremble. The island itself seemed to awaken, shaking violently as if protesting their discovery. "We need to go now," Jake shouted, grabbing the chest and pulling Emily to her feet. As they ran through the forest, the island seemed to come alive. The trees swayed, the ground shifted beneath their feet, and the very air felt thick with something alive. They barely made it back to the boat, tossing the chest inside and pushing off from the shore. The storm had intensified, and the waves rose around them, as if the sea were trying to swallow them whole. But somehow, they navigated through the storm, the island disappearing into the mist behind them. When they finally reached the safety of West Haven, soaked and exhausted, they laid the treasure out on the floor of their grandfather's house. The gold sparkled in the dim light, but something about it felt wrong. Captain Clark entered the room, his eyes widening as he saw what they had brought back. "Well, I'll be damned," he said with a grin. "You found it. But what was that island?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. The old sailor shrugged. "Some things, my dear, are best left unanswered. You were lucky this time. But remember, treasure always comes with a price." As Jake and Emily stared at the glittering gold, they couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger and far more dangerous.